really positive sense, I'm sure.
We have the Pentagon here. We have hundreds of companies which depend on federal spending and thousands of related businesses. The economic vitality of the region is dependent on it. And I was wondering, with BRAC coming, sequestration, all these things happening, what will you do as governor, specifically that ensures that Virginia weathers this buffeting which you mentioned?
Well, a couple of things. One, when I describe our job-focused policy approach, it is intended to allow for the diversification of our economy. But it's decisions that you all will make, and people like you all over Virginia. I am not running for governor telling you I have the crystal ball and I will tell you the next industry. Frankly, my opponent does that. It's partner. You hear words like partner, and that's great. But when government's your partner, usually it's senior partner status, and they're trying to dictate things and tell you how the economy is going to go and how it ought to go. That's why we need to be so careful with those business incentives. That can't be the overarching way that we grow our economy, because government doesn't get those things right as much as the private sector does. And I want to rely on the private sector. We do need to try and spur diversification here in Northern Virginia, because I think it is very reasonable to expect a shrinking federal presence up here, at least relatively speaking. It's always going to be very significant. But we want to capture that human capital. We have a lot of diversity up here. We have a lot of other opportunities that people can jump to. The lady I described that I met yesterday, she went to a totally different line of business, but she brought an awful lot of the experience and the human capital that she had developed working in the IT sector, in the defense industry, to what she's doing now. And that's the kind of thing we want to help catalyze. We can do that with some workforce development so that an entrepreneur can know they're going to have a labor force that can fulfill their needs, however big or small that company may be. Making those business and workforce development connections is very important, as well as just pushing on the business development front from a policy standpoint, which is lower taxation, hitting where it makes the most difference for job creation, and reining in the regulatory state. Now, most of that burden comes from the federal level, but the state government has a role to play in it. I think I have a very strong record of pushing back on regulatory burdens, including with Fairfax County here, Democrat Board of Supervisors as a co-plaintiff, pushing back when we needed to, and successfully on the EPA and some of the other federal overreach. But we control some of it here in Virginia. And when you're running for governor, I think you need to focus first and foremost on that area that you will sit atop of, which is our regulatory environment. And we want to make that as unburdensome as possible to encourage job creation. And you'll see, you look around the states are competing hard for this. We're watching Governor McCrory in North Carolina drive very hard in this direction, both tax reform, where he's trying to be more competitive with Virginia, and they've taken businesses from us in the past. I mean, I remember the 1990s, they changed their banking laws in a way very favorable, and we had bank headquarters walk down the road. I mean, we've seen the results of losing that competition. We need to win it going forward.
General, I think in your opening remarks, you mentioned workforce programs just a moment
I did,
ago,
yes.
workforce development. As you look at adjusting or reflecting the workforce needs when it comes to the vacancies that exist, and you look at the business and employer needs, as you talk about Danville and Harrisonburg,
right,
which is different on the workforce program. What would be your workforce program agenda as you?
Well, for one, you mentioned different parts of the state, and it's very important to realize, when we talk about STEM in Northern Virginia, we're really talking about preparing our K through 12 kids to go in that direction, right? I mean, that's our general expectation. It's not universal, but when you go down to Southside and you're talking about